Let those one or two lines talk about your understanding of the case. Depending on the context in the rest of the body of your answers, okay, relate your answers to civil service values. Read a lot of essays. They could be in English, they could be in Marathi. Allow me to say, you may choose to read Panchatar Soneri Pana. If in a relevant way you refer to Mission Karmayogi, that is suddenly going to lend an excellent quality to all your answers. A better Bharatiya Varnan description of the third way, in fact, is Yogaha Karmasu Kaushalam. So first of all, focused time for GS4 section B case study. So read the case carefully. Read with pen in your hand. And when you read, underline what you think are critical parts of the case. Underline what are also operative parts of the case. Okay. Underline what you think are issues which you are required to address. Also, those critical keywords which you are going to replicate in your answer to argue whatever. So the act of underlining. Now there all of us know that the cases are indeed lengthy. You need considerable time to read them. Like the prelim you have cleared. All UPSC youngsters told me that the question paper itself was lengthy. So the very act of reading what is the question took a long time. And it's not only about quantity of time, mind you. I was saying it's not only about quantity, length increases the complexity of the question. That is the key point for cases given to us. That in reading those cases carefully, training our mind in coming 2 months to attend to the whole case carefully, this is the ability of our intellect to grasp many diverse entities, factors, simultaneously see the interlink and then think of the solution. That is why carefully reading the case is important. Therefore, underlining them. Then pay attention to sometimes the case itself may define various options or alternatives. Sometimes the case may not. Pay attention to that. And then, if a given case has mentioned, say, 3 courses of action, the very case mentions that these are 3 alternatives. And normally speaking, the essence of the case study is, what would you do? My suggestion there is, you are not necessarily bound by the only options given in the case. You are to understand that case, including the options given, as if, okay, these are the 3 ones, which one will you exercise? Mains is not objective MCQ. Like in one of the prelims, in the CSAT paper, in a certain year, there was a question that floods are increasing and one village is engulfed by flood water of a river from all sides, and the water level is increasing by the hour, you as an officer, your first job is to save the people over there. But there is only one boat, and the boat is private. And that private owner is demanding 3 times the rate authorized by government. What will you do? Now, because it was the prelims, there were 4 options given. And because it was prelim, you were actually required to pick up one of the 4. There you don't have a choice. But I hope you understand why I picked up this very question to discuss. Because now think of the same as a question in the mains, GS4. Then you are not bound by those 4 options given. And for some years, I have indeed derived pleasure by sharing with students that in fact, I myself as an officer would have exercised a 5th option. But for prelims, it is not there. Prelims kept saying, one option was, in light of emergency, you will accept this demand. We'll pay him 3 times the authorized price, but you will immediately deploy the boat and save people. Second option was, you will argue with that boatman, saying this is a very steep rate, please reduce it, bring it to half, etc. You will argue. Third option was, you will refer to the seniors. Because as an officer, you do not have the authority to go beyond government authorized rates. You don't have the authority. So under what authority are you going to then take a decision? You don't have the authority, so you're going to refer to the seniors. And the fourth option was, you will not accept the demand. You will not accept this board. But then what do you do to saving the people? Okay, your job was to pick up one of the 4. I will not spend time on prelims right now, but my point is, what Avinash Dharmadhikari would have done is the 5th one. That is for mains. And that is, I would have called that boatman this way. Hey, bhau, hey. Asं. इकडे. Asं. काय पाहिजे? Then most of you will understand he would have folded his hand and he said, मी कुठं काय म्हणलो साहेब? He would on the contrary say, I'm not even asking for government authorized rate. He would then say, it's in fact my luck, my opportunity that I'm of some help to the people. Please take my boat and use it. Why? Because I'm going to threaten him. I will forfeit your boat. Jab tak karne. Jab tak, I have that authority under Essential Services Maintenance Act. If people are in trouble, then I have every authority to take every such step which will enable me to save people from that trouble. And if someone thinks that because people are in trouble and because I have a monopoly on providing that service, mine is the only boat, I will raise my demand to 3 times, then usko मैं अच्छी तरह से देख लूंगा. हिंदी में अच्छी हिंदी में भी कहते हैं कि आज इधर आ बेटे, तेरी मरम्मत कर लेता हूं. मस्ती आली का? त्याला मराठीमध्ये सुद्धा याला पॉवरफुल शब्द आहेत की तुला मस्ती आली का? फार तुला जरा इकडे इकडे काय भाऊ, बोट चालवायची का नाही चालवायची, etc. That is the case study in GS4. Then when you start writing your answer about GS4, my suggestion is again opening 1 or 2 lines. 1 or 2 lines. Okay. Let those 1 or 2 lines talk about your understanding of the case. Just 1 or 2 lines. What do you think this case is about? Okay. There, or depending on the context in the rest of the body of your answers, okay, relate your answers to civil service values. Remember this tip. Relate your answers to civil service values. So in a way, when you read the case, And when you are now about to write your answer, if at the start itself you just say, this is the case about probity and integrity, etc., one or two lines. Okay. Then, of course, remember that every case will have some dilemma. That's the very nature of the paper GS4. You would agree with me that forget GS4, dilemma is an integral part of life. Unavoidable, absolutely. Every day we confront 10 times of dilemma. मैं इधर जाऊं या उधर जाऊं. We are left with two or more than two options. And then as to those dilemmas, alternatives, should I do this or that? And the term dilemma actually means, okay, whatever I do is likely to be wrong. Whatever decision I take as an officer over there, given the case, whatever I agitun fufatyat, caught between hard and rock and hard place, okay, आसमान से टपका खजूर में अटका, okay, all sorts of. Then our skill is indeed how do we find the path across those dilemmas. So writing case study would mean awareness of those dilemmas. We write our answer in a way that we define and clarify the dilemma and then find our path across that dilemma. That is the skill. There, my dear friends, let me say, and I hope this helps you. I'm telling you, we can always find a third way. I'm summarizing it in one line. There is absolutely no dilemma which is utterly inevitable. And that I do this, something is about to go wrong. Likely to, bound to. Okay. So in an alternative to doing that is I do this, then again something else, something different, but things are going to go wrong. Okay. We can always find a third way. Third way. The name of the book by Stephen Covey. That's true for life also. That is there in Indian philosophy at all approaches. That is, history is full of great people who found correct solutions for people, for their responsibility, for their civilization in an utterly impossible situation. That's something that was considered ki kuch bhi karo. English word again is damned if you do, damned if you don't. Now kuch bhi karo, खड्डे में जाने वाले. The only choice is किस खड्डे में जाना है. I have to choose one. I'm telling you that's not what life is, and that's not what GS4, and that's not what every case. It is about our skill. But as long as we tell ourselves that given any dilemma, there is a solution. If time permits, I'm going to come to Manaswi's personal question. If today it doesn't, then you and I can always meet, including personally Manaswi and anyone always interested. Occasionally we are going to meet for those who voluntarily want to drop in and interact on the study part. But understanding those dilemmas will be important for writing case studies. Then even at the start, like I already told you, one or two lines, also think of what are civil service values relevant. Make it a point to mention. At the same time, if the case reminds you of something that actually happened, some actual event, some actual issue. Last year, there was some question which may remind us of the corona pandemic. So if we start our write-up, that this case reminds us, not reminds me, that will be I form, reminds us of the corona pandemic. And it goes on. Union Carbide leak at Bhopal on December 3, 1984. And a certain year, there was a case study on a chemical factory leak causing damage to people, environment, health, etc. And you handling that case, you find that first of all, the factory owner is your close friend. He's also politically well connected. It so happens that he had an idea and was repeatedly told to take right steps. Otherwise, such a chemical leak will happen. But now this has happened. He is in trouble. And maybe at some point of time in your life, that same friend helped you when you were in some big trouble. Now that friend is saying, you, please help me in this case. Okay. You will see there are all sorts of moral dilemmas. Plus, there are all sorts of complications in it. There is political pressure. He's connected with politicians, etc. He himself had helped you previously, etc. Understanding that complication and then referring to some current issue or whatever. Okay. After that opening 1 or 2 lines, my suggestion to you is also to have a small 3 or 4 line paragraph. Okay. Almost summarizing the case. Summarizing just 3 or 4 lines, not lengthy, not repeating the whole case, but just stating the crux of the whole case. Your take. What is this case? So just 3 or 4 lines about the basic nature of the case. What do you think is this case? Your take is the correct word. 3 or 4 lines. Okay. After that, mention what are the issues in this case. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sometimes the issues would be given in the case. Sometimes they may not be defined in the case. But how your write-up is then going to respond to those specific issues. Spelling out those issues is a proof of clarity. How clearly you have understood these issues is a proof of that clarity. So spell them out. Define the issues. Okay. Next part of case study answer may please be spelling out the stakeholders. Stakeholders. Who all are the people, entities, institutions, etc. What is at stake? Who all are? Once you are clear, then it means the way now you are presenting the case gives an expression of a very clear mind. This is how I'm going to handle them. Okay. After that, start examining various alternatives or options. And then something I've already told you. Examine them in a sequence and in a way that you take up one alternative one by one, give your summary in a way as to reject that alternative and go to the next one. Examine that and reject and go until finally you come to what you would do. That will automatically take your write-up on the case study to the climax. Eliminate one by one and then come to what is your course of action. I've already told you about. There is always a third way. A better Bharatiya Varnan description of the third way, in fact, is Yogaha Karmasu Kaushalam. That it is skill in action. Whatever complicated things we see, it is your skill in action. Some of you, including Manasvi, have conveyed to me that you people carefully watch the Karyakarta Adhikari Malika. Now there you may come across many such complicated situations across which I decided to take steps in a way that it suddenly thinks of a some third remedy, some hatke, offbeat, not in the so-called standard SOP of what government laid down, In fact, for all 10 years of my active service as IAS officer, not once have I followed the standard line of least resistance. Yes, you need to study laws and various administrative manuals and financial manuals, even to break the standard frames. First of all, you need to understand what is the standard frame. And then you break and go across it. For want of time, I just mention one thing. I took up literacy campaign in Ratnagiri district as Chief Executive Officer of Ratnagiri Jilla Parishad. Okay. There itself, every norm that Government of India had stated begins to be broken. Under Government of India norm, it was for the state government to decide which district to take up for implementing the literacy program. Here, it is the CEO of the district who is saying, I am going to implement literacy program, not the state. Okay. Then under Government of India norms, once the state government decides to take up a district for literacy campaign, then the district collector was the key authority, was the nodal agency. District collector was the head chairman of the district literacy committee. For Ratnagiri, CEO is saying so. And I had an excellent collector with whom we were on friendly terms. He also was of clean and good intention. He never took any objection. He said, it's great, Avinash, fine, I'm with you, let's do it. And finally, National Literacy Mission has laid down some guiding principles for preparing the project report for the district. Okay. I broke every single guideline. The project report I prepared for Ratnagiri district diverted almost completely from the guidelines issued by National Literacy Mission. I will not waste time in explaining that the project was approved by Government of India. Not the whole episodes are given there, but I believe it is relevant for our handling the cases of how we find the path across what appear to be seemingly impossible situations, what appear to be deadlocks or dilemmas or moral also dilemmas. Mind you, that they are bound to be there in GS4. So, your course of action. Then, when I suggest you to carefully read the case and then sort of underline, what I'm also then suggesting to you is see to it that your answer addresses all aspects of a given case. That you need to be very careful, because whenever for mock exam or by this evening today, you will be given the first round of assignments. I do observe that almost everyone sort of misses 1 or 2 points from a given case. Your write-up, your answer to the case study, which means broadly speaking, your course of action. Okay, the mind seems to be noticing one angle, so the answer addresses all of it. In the process, some one angle is missing. So your answer needs to clarify, first of all, address all aspects of a given case. And in the answer, the wording needs to clarify how you have addressed all of them. Then, a judicious balance between idealism and pragmatism. This I am suggesting to you as a practical tip for writing GS4. That yes, you are the administrator there. Yes, of course, ideals and principles are primary. But when you write the answer, your response, your answer needs to show what are the practical issues involved. They are there. Okay. That particular friend did help you when you were in trouble. And now he is sort of asking for the payback. But here you are officer, with the responsibility of looking after people's welfare there, and the friend is connected with politicians, and you are likely to be transferred. Maybe your own son is now in 12th standard science with PCM and aiming at joining engineering faculty, and sudden midterm transfer will is likely to adversely affect your son's or daughter's future. So the mind needs to notice these factors and handle a problem in a way that you are aware of all these. These are what I call as pragmatic considerations. And our write-up, our answer to GS4 case studies is to prove that correct judicious balance of practicality and pragmatism. My mind is actually throwing up hundreds of examples as we go on meeting in coming days. Maybe I will use the time to share many such examples. How do we find path across moral dilemmas also? How, without compromise with the ideals, we can adjust pragmatism. Unfortunately, what most of the people and most of the civil servants also do is they adjust idealism with pragmatism. That's not the view I'm suggesting. We need to adjust pragmatism with idealism. What I mean to say is, what is basic? I want to submit that idealism is basic. But that we are idealist does not mean we don't study, understand, and accordingly address the practical aspects of a given issue. So, yes, as an officer, I will never be worried about my transfer. माझी बॅग भरलेलीच आहे. Yes, truly that approach. But are we to take into consideration these human factors? They are there, practical factors. Does it mean that for those pragmatic factors, I will compromise with the principles? That right now, transfer is not okay. So I will compromise with this and रफा दफा कर दूंगा मैं. वो chemical factory leak वाली सारी बात मैं रफा etc. So, but the skill will be our ability to balance idealism and pragmatism. In terms of UPSC answers, I have an informal feedback from UPSC that if they think the answer is what they call as too idealistic, okay, then they sort of conclude ये कहने के वास्ते है, शो कर रहा है, बन रहा है, okay, because the answer doesn't show you having taken into consideration the practical, pragmatic details and then addressed, mentioned them in it, okay. So like if a sort of perceivably a so-called too idealistic answer may be perceived as a false answer. So that too. So how we are going to arrive at a judicious sort of balance and all. Now, while there is always a lot to say, and unfortunately the time is always restricted, we have last sort of 7 minutes, give or take 1 or 2 minutes here and there. I am forcing myself to come to last, hopefully 2 or 3 parts. Okay, one is, even in coming 2 months, for essay and for GS4, you may carefully read something, say 1 hour a day. 1 hour, which builds you up for essay. So read good essays. At the same time, that also helps you understand how outstanding quality GS4 case study write-ups are to be written. And then read that 1 hour a day in a way that what you read also helps you prepare for UPSC mains. If so far I am sounding a bit abstract, then let me tell you that sometimes some of the columns in some newspapers, they are indeed excellent. I myself respect some of them And especially if I see them writing something on a given issue, then I also make it a point to read, say, C. Raja Mohan on overall foreign policy issues. Okay. Including just about 1 or 2 days ago, he wrote an article on this ongoing peace process at Geneva in the context of USA, Israel, and Iran. So minimum I would do is to see what he wants to say. Now, that itself is an essay. See how he presents himself. Some days ago, I discussed something beautiful with our core team, Chanakya Mandal core team. Maybe, not maybe, I'm sure Ketan will remember it. There was a certain day when in the morning, I was doing my own regular newspaper reading. Okay. I came across one article written by Ananta Nageswaran. He is the chief economic advisor. Okay. I must tell you that I respect Ananta Nageswaran. To me, he comes across as a sort of low-key, quiet person who may not be outwardly flashy, who may not be extrovert, or his name may not be sort of big bang name in the field of economics. Someone may think he's not the economist of a global stature. I am, for example, comparing with, say, Arvinda Subramanian, who also was chief economic advisor at a point of time. Arvinda Pangadiya, another great economist of global repute. And even I recommend 2 of his books on Indian economy for all UPSC aspirants to study. Or there was Ila Patnaik, another great economist, moving at world level, participating many global debates, including World Economic Forum meeting at Davos, etc. She also was chief economic advisor in a certain year. As compared to these big names, Dr. Vijay Kelkar, okay, Jagdish Bhagwati, Amartya Sen, you may think these are big names. As compared to them, Ananta Nageswaran hasn't been that vocal, that flashy, that, okay, I must tell you that after I carefully read at different times, reason I read is he is chief economic advisor. Let me see his thinking on a given issue. And I went on fighting that the guy talks sense. He has a depth. Okay. And the day I'm now referring to, I made it a point to read that article because it was in response to another article written by another great, I believe, genuinely impartial economist named Surjit Bhalla. So if there is an article by Surjit Bhalla, I make it a point to read. Again, I don't have to again say it's an essay. And it is Surjit Bhalla's take on that economic issue. As a student of economics that permanently I am, let me see what he's saying. Okay, in that article some 4 days ago, Surjit Bhalla had criticized some of the economic policies of government. And now here was Ananta Nageswaran coming up with a very sober, very balanced, okay? So point to be noted here is, he's not accusing Surjit Bhalla of anything. Not bias. He's not casting aspersions on Surjit Bhalla. He's not questioning Surjit Bhalla's competence, Surjit Bhalla's motives. He's not saying Surjit Bhalla also was on Prime Minister's Advisory Council, but for reasons best known to him, he resigned from that council. That is why now he is criticizing government policies. No such thing. In the single example I'm telling you, I hope you understand that it also summarizes everything I spoke with you for 6 hours. 6 hours, 3 sessions, 6 hours. Ananta Nageswaran, in the most sober and balanced way, is taking an argument by Surjit Bhalla one by one. Okay? Presenting his view along with relevant data, statistics, even economic arguments, and addressing Surjit Bhalla's points. Okay, that, my dear friends, is actually the best way, and I also called it the India way of debate. Vada, Vada. It's not from ego. It's not casting aspersions. It's not questioning motive. You take up an argument, examine that argument, and respond to that argument. Okay. So I hope it helps you. Surjit Bhalla's article is an essay examining government's policies. So my reading that essay helps me understand how a well-studied person writes an essay, how it is meaningful, how it is directly to the point, how it is eminently readable, mind you, because Surjit Bhalla or Ananta Nageshwaran are not writing that paper for the conference of economists, or they are not writing that paper for a magazine devoted to economics. They are writing for laymen. Newspaper is supposed to be read by common people. So Surjit Bhalla is addressing common people. And then Ananta Nageshwaran coming up with an answer in 2-3 days. And a very sober, well-studied. I must tell you, as a beautiful part of that methodology, that Ananta Nageshwaran happily and respectfully also agreed with 2 of the points. He said, this criticism is valid. Or says, we need to look into it. Then as chief economic advisor, he says, my promise is we will look into it. So he did agree with it. Okay. So read a lot of essays. They could be in English, they could be in Marathi. Allow me to say, you may choose to read Panchatar Soneri Pana. I hope everyone understands that in a way, it is an essay on one topic at each point of time. While most of those essays happen to be 2,500 words, most of them. Many initial ones are around 1,200 words. But actually, it is each one is an essay. And so also Marathi or English. So read some columns, some write-ups, some journalists who sometimes also like, I'm giving you 1 or 2 Marathi examples. I hope they help you also. There is Ravindra Shobhne, who was Adhyaksha of Marathi Sahitya Sammelan a couple of years ago. And in Saptahik Sakal, he is writing on Sant Namdev. So now, overall Maharashtra, within which the work of saint poets has always been a part of my study. And since Ravindra Shobhne is a well-studied person on Santa Sahitya, okay, I would make it a point to read what he's saying. So also like Sadananda More and like many such names. Or when it comes to English, this international journalist Thomas Friedman. And this will just go on. The point is, okay, read. Again, the point will be write some. As a part of our design, yes, there is a series. And then some essays you may actually physically write, submit them to faculty, get them checked. But remember the principle of brain writing. So like other answers in other papers, you can also sit down and write the whole essay inside your brain. And thus begin to actually see the whole essay. And similarly for GS4, you may go on reading a lot of cases. So, last 5 years of question papers, carefully read all those cases. If you want to, then pick up any 1 or 2 and write your write-up. But then especially this skill of brain writing, you read a case, use the methodology, underline, etc., etc. Jot down the points and then develop the answer inside your brain. You'll actually begin to see the answer. And similarly, reading something GS4 oriented. There is always a lot, but I'm going to now finally sum up. We have already exceeded time, but I'm still going to sum up. Okay. Think of Mission Karmayogi, a whole policy and program developed by Government of India to completely transform India's bureaucracy. My suggestion to you indeed is, please read it originally, Mission Karmayogi. Ketan, in fact, if you can find a link or a PDF, then make it a point to send it to all. And then in your answers in GS4, including section A, please remember, and case studies go without saying, if in a relevant way you refer to Mission Karmayogi, that is suddenly going to lend an excellent quality to all your answers. Then while next 3 or 4 words I am telling you, someone may think of that as a game of words, Shabdansa Khel. But if you understand that the words we use define our view, words themselves are a perspective. Words, in fact, are a sanskar, the deepest Bharatiya word. Okay. So the Prime Minister says, I am not Pradhan Mantri. He says, I am Pradhan Sevak. Just a word. Or the address of Prime Minister's residence was 7 Racecourse Road. And the name of that road itself is changed to Loka Kalyan Marg. Think about it. Then Rajpath, the main road opposite President's mansion, is now called Kartavya Path. Also, the governor's office and residence, until recently called Raj Bhavan, now henceforth called Lok Bhavan. Okay. And government buildings, mind you, offices of, including those in Delhi, some of them restructured, some of them renamed, will now be called Kartavya Bhavan. This is all GS4. Every civil servant entering his or her office should remember that you are entering Kartavya Bhavan. And you are Sevak, not ruler. Okay, and so on and so forth. So, Mission Karmayogi. Another to which I'll draw your attention, it will help you even within these 2 months, okay, is the 4th report of the 2nd Administrative Reforms Commission. I'm sure Ketan will find the link, send it to you, and at regular intervals when we are going to meet, say once every 10 or 15 days, those who can come and those who want to and can join online simultaneously, and we'll just meet for like 1.5 hours, interacting on some ongoing issues of studies. But this report will help you. Okay. So finally, like, all the best. I'm just trying to go through my notes to see whether something is left out. On balance, while there is always a lot to say, I think I have done a bad job of covering all the points. We are going to see you soon, but with everyone's permission, let's close this session. All the best, everybody.
जरी एक अश्रू पुसायास आला, तरी जन्म काहीच कामास आला.